Hi everyone, it's Tracy Malone. I am going to interview my friend Chris and Lisa from Been There, Got Out, and we're going to be talking about their new book, When Your Ex Turns the Kids Against You. This is about alienation, the epidemic of it, the pain involved, and what you can maybe do, and how to help your kids if this is happening in your family. So, let's go meet them. If you're going through this, I am here to help you. And all my information is down below. But let's go meet Lisa and Chris. Hi, Lisa. Hi, Chris. Welcome to my show.
Hey, Tracy.
Great to be
Thanks
back.
for
It's
having
been a
us.
while.
I know. It's I've been a busy girl, and I think you guys have been too because you have a new book when your ex turns
Yes.
the
Oh,
kids
thank
against you.
you.
Uh,
Let's all do it.
what? Oh, we didn't do it. Well, they'll get it. This book is about parental alienation, right?
Yep.
And so many people that I have met, and not only that, personal friends have had this kind of thing happen in their life. And one friend has lost all of four of her children, and then she got two back. And then they were alienated from the other ones that stayed with dad. And so it just becomes this like trauma in the entire family.
And the ripple effects into all of their relationships, their
Mhm.
children, and people connected to them.
Absolutely. So can we start because there might be people listening that don't understand the difference between alienation and estrangement because while they are the same painful withdrawal of someone, can you explain what the differences are?
Yeah, I mean, so alienation, and it's like this controversial label because a lot of times people are like, "Ooh, it's like a bad word," but every professional that we speak to, lawyers and therapists say this is the term that we use. Like everybody knows what it is. And for
Mhm.
us, the most important thing is it's happening. It happens all the time. And
Mhm.
so it's really important to recognize the behavior. So alienation is when one parent, parental alienation, is turning the child against the other parent, and the child is taking it in and sees the other parent as dangerous, not justified. Like loving that other parent is not justified anymore, and there's really no good reason for it. It usually happens pre-separation where you don't notice like the digs and how your ex is kind of insulting you and undermining you, and then it just gets worse and worse and worse. And so the child is left with feeling that you either are an unsafe person, that you've abandoned them, or that you're just not available. So, but it doesn't happen, even though alienating behaviors happen all the time. We actually just were meeting with somebody. We met with someone last Friday who's an expert in this, and she was saying that even though she's married, she's like, I do alienating behaviors. My husband does too with to our kids. Like that's part of no, a normal relationship. It's she's a therapist, and she said, but the difference is we repair the rupture. So my kids see that, it's just an argument and we still love each other. Alienation, it's like, shh, you're done. Estrangement is when there is documented, and again, there's the levels of how to tell, abuse or neglect where the kid has a reason for not wanting to have that parent in their life. But it's very hard to prove something like that in court because there has to be long patterns long before the separation of when there were issues. But
Yeah.
it's generally like, is there a reason for a child to extremely reject, and alienation to a child extremely rejects? It's very black and white, like you're good or you're evil.
Mhm.
So,
in,
yeah,
in totality. And really at the core of it is like that bond that exists between a child and a parent. And I'll just use like a traditional situation where there's a mother and a father or two parents. Let's just say two parents. That bond is really hard to break. The
Mhm.
force that needs to be applied to that relate, the negative force that
Mhm.
needs to be applied to one of those primary attachments is so strong that it needs to be either like horrific behavior in the case of estrangement by the parent that gets cut out, or horrific behavior by the other parent, which results in an intentional severing of that bond.
And
It takes a lot.
yeah, I'm going to correct you on the estrangement analogy there
Yeah. Yeah.
because there are a lot of parents who did nothing wrong, who are good, strong parents, and they get influenced by the adult child's new spouse. So
Hmm.
a narcissist.
That's I would call that alienation. It's just who's doing it.
Right.
Well, it's estrangement when the child chooses not to be with you anymore, right?
Yeah.
So it crosses both lines. But again, the Oprah Winfrey just did something on parental alienation and estrangement, and she made a comment and said to Gail, her friend, "Oh, don't worry, that would never happen to you. You're such a good mom." And
Mm.
that
Oh
has
my
created
gosh.
No.
quite a stir, quite a
Yeah.
stir. And
I
like,
mean,
yeah.
this affects 22 million divorced and separated parents in America and Canada alone, not
Hmm.
including the rest of the world. It is the one of the most common forms that we see in our community of high conflict divorce and custody battles. Alienation is baked right into that because we always say once they get out of the day to day, they're limited in ways to still have that power and control. Money, your kids, and the court. And money and the court go hand in hand, and the kids are the most painful and last the longest. So that's what they do is they create these loyalty conflicts. And again, the child is not allowed to love both of you. They have to choose.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's a painful thing for, everyone involved because the kids got some perceived thing if they're the ones doing the estranging, if their parent is alienating them and going, "Mommy's crazy, don't eat her food, she's probably poisoning you." Those sort of little things that children don't necessarily pick up on. They're subtle and they're gaslighting. Can you tell me how gaslighting is used in this kind of alienation thing?
Yeah, I mean, so I think a lot of it is in sending those poisonous messages. There's certain factors, and I know Tracy, you've also interviewed Dr. Amy Baker. And the
Mhm.
Baker model is used to build an alienation case, and so we always teach her factors to all of our clients because we want them to be themselves to be able to protect themselves from false claims of parental alienation, but also to know what to look for when it's happening.
Mhm.
So, oh my gosh, I just forgot the question.
So did I.
Oh,
Gaslighting.
gaslighting,
Gaslighting.
gaslighting.
Well,
I was
Lisa, I'm thinking
gaslighting.
of the three
That was
U's.
what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, Chris, do you want to talk about the three U's, or do you want me to?
Sure. Sure. So one of the types of poisonous messages that an alienating parent will send is that the other parent is unsafe, unloving, or unavailable. Mom's not around because she's always with her new boyfriend, but I have time for you, or like you said, the poisoning example. And then you said it's a little thing. That's a pretty big thing if you're telling your child that the other parent's going to poison them. But yeah, all of those things unsafe, unloving, unavailable.
Well, also another factor is erasing and replacing. So rewriting history, making it as though you were never as significant in their lives as you really were, or getting with a new partner and being like, that's your real parent. They love you more. And your old, your mom or dad, they don't care as much because they're either unsafe, unloving, unavailable, whatever. So we tend to think that memory stays a certain way forever, but memory is really, really malleable. And especially in our culture, and Dr. Josh Coleman, who was on Oprah, probably talking about the stuff with alienation, because that's his big thing, talks about how kids' brains do change, and or not just kids, because he deals with adults, but the therapy culture now in where we are, where it's like therapists add to this with adults, where it's like, oh, just cut someone off. So instead of teaching people conflict resolution skills and to work through things together, it's like, no, I'm done. Like, just that's the end. No conversation. People don't know why. They don't understand what they did wrong, and that's the end of it. So it's really, really heartbreaking.
It is. And again, I think a lot of therapists have, just not an awareness of the duality of different pieces, like, just the talking behind their back, the this, the that, but it is that twisting of the truth and of history, right?
Mhm.
And so a young child is going to be like, "Oh, I don't know," but, they're going to paint it. And I'll use the mom in this example is mom makes you do all that homework and she's
Mhm.
so mean, but we can stay up all night and play video games here, right? So you're appealing to the child's like, "Oh, I want to play video games all day." But then the responsible parent, that makes them go to bed on time is now demonized, right? So that's like just completely lying to the child and making them feel unsafe. So when they are with that parent, they're sitting there and going, yeah, well, yeah, you just asked me to clear my plate. How dare you? And so the discipline and just household things get twisted into something that they never were.
Yeah. It's very difficult to discipline when you're dealing with somebody like that.
Yeah. So if that
Yeah, their
parent,
their sales pitch is very appealing to an immature young mind. You
absolutely.
know, you eat whatever you want, no discipline, don't do your homework. What? Who needs to do that, right?
My last ex, not a husband, but the last dumbass I had in my life, had two kids, and somehow got custody of his son alone, and he would spend the entire weekend trying to do a marathon of no sleeping, living on
Mm.
delivered pizza and Coke. So they drink like two giant bottles of Coke a day, stay up all night, and then here, go to mom's. Oh, I know you didn't do your homework or your report, but don't worry about that. Right? He was the poster child for turning your kids against the other parent. And, it was all twisted, like, she's so mean to me, and,
Mhm.
oh, you have to protect me. And one time I was with the kid alone, and I was like, don't you miss your mom and dad? I mean, don't you miss your mom and your sister? And he turned to me, he goes, yeah, I do, but daddy cries so much and he needs me.
That's a big thing is like the parent that plays victim, and then the children feel responsible for that parent's emotional health,
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
that enmeshment.
Yeah, exactly. And then if you think about the things that the kid is being told, right, the lies, the twistedness of it all, it then goes back to, again, we'll use the mom example, goes back to mom's house, and you're a bad parent and you're gonna poison me, and all of the things that start to come out. How do people respond to that? Like
Yeah.
the
I,
targeted parent.
I love that example that you used for this question because it fits. It's like often a child starts parroting the same messages from your ex, and it can feel very triggering because you think, oh, I just got away from this person, and now my kid has become them, and do I even want to be around them? So it's tricky, but keep in mind these messages are coming through your ex to you. So we've heard the term abuse by proxy, and
Mhm.
often that child is reporting your reaction back to the other parent. So that your instinct says, I have to correct the record. They're saying, you're going to poison me.
Mhm.
So, but you can't just say, no, I'm not. That's crazy. Like, why would you believe something like that? Because if you do that, you're basically doing the same thing your abusive ex is doing. Your abusive ex is telling the kid, this is what you should think. This is real and this is true. And they come to you and they test it out, and you're going, no, that's not true. You got to keep in mind that kids see both of you as authorities, and often they love both of you. Even if someone's being abusive, they still love both of you,
Mhm.
and they experience cognitive dissonance because they're like, well, if my parents don't lie to me and they're telling me completely opposite things, then I don't know who to believe. So instead of correcting the record, which is what your ex put there, doing the same thing and saying to the child, I essentially don't think that you can think for yourself. You do the opposite and say, and encourage critical thinking skills like, wow, you think I'm going to poison you? Like, tell me why you think that way. Tell me where that came from. I mean, have I tried to do that before? Like, where are you getting this information? But you got to get them to start exercising those muscles instead of just, I'm going to say this, this is what it is, and my kids should just believe me because that's not how things work.
Yeah, yeah. Especially when these lies have been perpetuated to, you know, it's not once. That's part of the gaslighting lies is it's 1,000 times.
I love what you said, Tracy, about we hear this from our clients all the time. My kid sounds like my ex, like they're just parroting the language. And you brought
Mhm.
me all the way back to when I was first separated from my ex. My younger son was, I think, 7 when this happened, but I was trying to get him to school, and he's on the phone with his mom, and he's like just complaining about me. Dad's making me go to school. It's horrible, horrible, horrible. And he shouts down the stairs at me, Dad, you have no empathy. from a 7-year-old. I'm like in my head, I'm going, son, you have no vocabulary for that. So
That's called a borrowed scenario.
yeah.
Mhm.
So parroting that same language that does not match a child's developmental age.
Yeah, no, I hear those stories like daily where it's like, and it to the targeted parent, it feels so much worse because you just got rid of the person that's doing it, and now, oh my God, they're back, and they're in your house even though
Like a
it's
horror movie, right? Like a horror movie. Like it's dead. No, it's blah. It's like lunging
And
at
it's
you
going to
again.
become just like them. Oh no. And they're like all the other people are going to suffer. And how can I, as a parent, have raised this monster
Yes, yes.
and the
And
guilt?
when I was in the domestic violence world, you know, at the conferences for DV, they would say that even if a child is being beaten by their parent, they still want them. They still
Yeah.
love them.
Mhm.
Hmm.
My mother was a narcissist, and I craved her love my entire life.
Yeah.
I mean, it was neglect, it was this, it was that. And I was just like, I want her, I want her. I mean, all of us, all three of our sisters wanted my mother to show up and be in our life the right way.
Hmm.
We never had this get away from me, you're evil, you've made this fatal mistake. And this crosses over into my estranged parents who have a narcissistic son or daughter-in-law, where these lies are perpetuated, and before you know it, it's extending to the family. It just like it just keeps going. And the targeted parent is now isolated from their own family because
Hmm.
the lies are now going to their child, and their child tells this one and that one, and it just keeps perpetuating. And the parent who's targeted almost feels like they have no defenses. So how do we counter and prevent an ex from poisoning and turning the kids against you, like in a legal sense?
All right. So Chris, we have a little nickname for him called Pee Pee Man. Why don't you talk about what's a good?
It's a terrible superhero name, but it's short for parenting plan. A lot of the problems that, from a legal standpoint, so a lot of these problems have solutions that are outside the legal system, but the question is about legally, is to have a really strong parenting plan with very clear language around things like schedules and how decisions are made. All the stuff that plans cover has to be a lot tighter in high conflict situations, has to be no room for interpretation because the other side's going to interpret it however they want. The
Mhm.
word reasonable does not belong in there unless you're trying to be vague, which sometimes, but you want deadlines, you want consequences. If a visitation doesn't happen, I get 2 times makeup time, perhaps, for like the second violation, whatever. But it's you need to protect your time and contact.
Mhm.
Things like not, having privacy on your calls if your kids are young enough that you're doing like scheduled calls on the other parent's time. A lot of times the other side will interfere with it, will prevent it from happening. There's always something fun happening when your call is supposed to happen. So the kid starts to associate it with something negative. I'm being taken away from what I was doing because I have to talk to mom, like that kind of thing.
Mhm. Yeah,
That
yeah.
feeds right into it. So you need all kinds of, especially in the areas affecting contact with your child, whether it's your parenting time or your calls or whatever, attending events, things like that, being listed as alternate contacts with the school and other places. You need to have it super, super tight.
Yeah,
Yeah, and there's something that a New York City attorney named Yoni Leveretz mentioned when we did an interview with him, and he says to always put a therapy clause in parenting plan that says, because we already know you're going to need therapy and the kids are going to need therapy, and the other side doesn't want the kids to have therapy because then things come out. And so in the therapy clause to have something that says that if either parent wants the child to have therapy or if the child, him or herself, wants therapy, then it's not considered a major decision. It's carved out and it's going to be allowed, and you figure out how you're going to pay for it, and that's that. So that
Mhm.
avoids that whole secrecy, privacy thing. And we like to recommend family systems therapists, especially those trained in DBT or dialectical behavioral therapy, because they work with personality disordered individuals.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that Lisa mentioned before about correcting the record. right? That's a myth. I think we need to myth bust that one. Another one that's a little more broad that we need to myth bust is that like there's such a thing as a therapist, right? That is a very, very broad profession with different areas of expertise. There are therapists that know nothing about personality disorders because that's not their background. So you need to do your research and make sure you get the right kind of therapist. And family systems therapist is a great start.
Yeah. And they're unicorns. They're
Mhm.
so hard to find. And I have so many people with like an 8-year-old, and oh God, we've called everyone from 200 miles around. And it's a hard thing because there's such a demand for them. And the children who are struggling with this, they need this, but the parent who's going to withhold them and going, oh, they're fine, they don't need any help, is going
Mhm.
to, stop them from ever moving beyond the things that they're feeling or the confusion. Because
But
kids really feel confused when, mommy's bad, daddy's bad, I'm confused here, what's going on, right? And so they do need that kind of support and they do need that help. And I love that you are PP man because I am PPO man, but I have parentingplans.org. So everything I write when I'm like, it's either my narcissist site or the PPO site. So I'm like, that's how we decipher things over here. But again, if you have high conflict, I totally agree. The most important thing is the parenting plan. And that's where I see so much post-divorce abuse come because
Mhm.
they didn't. And the lawyer's like, oh, you don't need times. Everyone's doing this. You're overcomplicating it. It doesn't matter. It'll be fine. You'll all get along later. Or you can come
yep.
back and we'll represent you when you sue them again. And I just want to shake the lawyer and go, not everyone gets along after divorce. And it's not just a little transition. We're talking about a personality disorder that is intended to make their life a living hell for the next 18 years. So
Mhm.
I think, making sure that they get the help, because if you don't put it in that parenting plan, you will end up back in court and fighting it and fighting it. And the good thing is that judges don't like someone refusing child therapy, but it's still going to cost you 20 grand to go and fight it. So it's,
And however
Uh, uh,
long that it'll
uh,
take.
100%. And we don't like Lisa and I in our work, we don't like to work counter. Like everybody's on the same team. We all want to pull in the same direction. We don't want to work counter to an attorney ever, right? We're all supporting the client. Um, but this is one of those things where you need to be firm with your attorney that
Mhm,
I need that level of detail because this is a perfect, you hit it on the head. The system is not built for high conflict cases. The
mhm,
system has a baked in assumption that, yeah, you're mad now. You're going to calm down. You're going to put your kids first. We all love our children, right? So they're going to be the priority as you move on with your new life. In these cases, never
mhm.
happens.
Yeah, yeah. And like I tell people, if I go to a restaurant and order a steak, I'm going to tell you how to cook it, right? I want to tell them how we're going to cook our children, and this is what we're going to do. These are the rules, the guidelines, and if they don't, then you've got some kind of actions. But again, it's going to cost you. The more details you can get in these, the better you're going to be. But what kind of relief can someone ask the court for if they are seeing these kind of behaviors?
So I think the best thing is some kind of therapy, and it is really, really tricky to start with that. But then it depends on, and Chris alluded to it earlier, when someone is continuing to violate a parenting plan. So, for example, blocking contact and communication, you keep missing all these visits to really know what the court can do. So you can ask for financial sanctions. So, and this is stuff that has to be thought of before you do the parenting plan. It makes it a lot easier for a judge to just say, okay, you have this in here, where they'll pay a fine for every missed visit. Some people do it for every chunk of time that's missed. That if you have to take them to court to enforce this order, they pay all of your attorney's fees. Um, Sometimes people say that if there's therapy sessions, then the parent who is not complying will pay for the therapy sessions because that's a result of the kid having to endure this conflict.
Mhm.
Um, and if it gets to the point where somebody's really violating, then sometimes people end up losing custody, not wholly at first, because that's usually a huge step, but we have seen people lose custody and end up on supervised visitation, or even not even that, where their calls are very, very restricted, or their contact is really restricted because they've interfered with that other parent's relationship so much. So there's a lot of things you can do, but so much depends on building a really powerful case that shows patterns of this person's behavior and the visible impact on the child. Because we always say you're the victim as a parent, but your child is the victim, because this is going to impact their ability to form relationships for the rest of their lives. So we really want to focus on what will fix this issue. And so it has to be nipped in the bud. You can't wait. People often make the mistake of like, let's just see, or maybe I'm being, I'm
Cooling off
overreacting.
period, right?
Yeah,
We'll
like,
give the
oh,
kid a cooling off period.
oh yeah.
That's right. And so I don't think you intended this as a myth busting episode, but let's bust another one. We've seen so many people go in front of a judge and have their case buttoned down. Here's the problem, Your Honor. And they prove the problem, but they don't have an effective proposed solution to the problem. And this goes back to what we said earlier, right? The courts aren't built to handle these cases. So make sure, if you're going to come in and say, this is wrong and it's having this impact on my child and my relationship with my child and all of that, and you go to all that trouble, make sure you have a solution in mind that's appropriate for that. Because you're going to ask the judge to do something and you don't want to leave it up to them.
Right. Make their job easy
They
for
don't
them.
know.
And when you ask, make sure you have an alternate. Have two choices.
Mhm.
So we could try this. This will work. This is why it'll work. Or we could try that.
Mhm.
And then see what happens. But don't just be like, Your Honor, what are we going to do? Like, save me. It's not, they're not going to do it. They'll say, we can't.
Yeah, no. And I think when people have, they're in the court situation, it's not only thinking about the solution and the choices for them, but thinking about the way it impacts the children. I mean, a lot of the parents are just like, but it's my time. And I'm like, it is your time, but it is also the child's time with you. And that, if we come from that child focused lens, I think we get a better reaction with the judge and the courts, and showing that evidence of, hey, see, he keeps telling them I'm going to poison them when they come home and they don't want to eat for 4 days and then they go back. I mean, those kind of things are gold when you're looking at showing the courts what's going on. So are there ways to prevent alienation if parents start to see this kind of stuff happening? Is there a way, hey, just do this and they won't alienate? How do
I don't know about just do
Yeah, I was like, the
anything, right?
just.
Just,
I know. Well, you know what I
Yeah.
meant.
Yeah. There's some things that you can do that make it less likely for it to happen.
Uh-huh.
So I interviewed a psychiatrist named Dr. Alina Boye, who works with kids from preschool to young adulthood, and she says there's something called the 10-minute rule, which I love, and that's that every child wants two things more than anything. It's just, it sounds like a little narcissist. They want control and attention. So when you are around your children, if you can spend 10 minutes completely focused on what they want to do, even if it's video games and you hate that. But something where they are teaching you about what they're doing or leading you in an activity. Think about it with your ex is not capable of really paying attention to your child. So you
Mhm.
want to start establishing a contrast in that you actually care about your kid enough to sit back and not push your own agenda and like, we need to do this, but like, what do you feel like doing? I want to learn from you. I appreciate you. You have so much to offer. Teach me how to bake those brownies. You're so good at them. I can't do it. Teach me, you're so good at this game. Like, how do you do it? So again, you're giving the kid control and attention, and some people don't have very much contact, but if you have any at all, make sure your kid knows how much you value them as an individual in your life. So that's a big thing that you can do. And the other is they need to develop critical thinking skills. So you've probably heard of a book called The Sky is Red by Tyra Juliet. It's written for very young kids. But Chris, do you want to talk about the game? The
well,
Sky is
yeah,
Red.
I mean, and it can be kind of adjusted for age. But just to it's simple with the little kid, you can do a game where you could say, "Hey, the sky is green. What do you think of that?" And the kid could go like, "No, mommy, no, daddy. The sky is blue. You're silly." Like that kind of thing, where it's you're obviously giving them something that's not true, that they need to go, "No, you're wrong. It's this." And it builds up their confidence. Now, obviously, you're not going to do that with a 16-year-old. You need to kind of tailor it.
Yeah. But it's like you want your child to learn to question authority. So
Even
not to
your
be
own.
disrespectful. And I mean, I taught high school, and one of the things I loved teaching about was advertising. And now with the way our world is in AI and, who knows what's real or not, but to open up conversations with your kids, whatever age they are, where it's not about their parent, but it's about books that you read together that you could discuss, movies that you watch together, a show where there's conflict taking place between a kid or somebody they can relate to and somebody else, and you analyze it together. Like, do you think they did the right thing? Why or why not? What would you do in this situation? Like, make them start to question and to start thinking. And those are ways to work that critical thinking muscle. Examine, like, you heard something. Okay, you're just going to repeat whatever you hear and think it's true. Why? Like, where did it come from? What's the source? So, I used to teach high school English and writing, and I love doing that with my students. It's like, stop and pause and think, where is this message coming from? Like, who's going to benefit if you believe it or
Mhm.
not? Like, what do you think?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? You made me think. My brain went there to the Star Wars movies for a moment, and I was thinking like the world isn't like Star Wars movies where Darth Vader is all evil, and I'm like, wait a minute, Darth Vader. They added layers of complexity, right? I don't think I'm going to do a spoiler here, but Darth Vader is Luke Skywalker's father, right? 1980s. There's a statute of limitations, so so it introduced that like complexity. Like, how would you feel if you found out I mean, maybe this isn't the best
Maybe
example
not
because
the
it's a
parent.
parent,
Yeah, yeah.
right? But how do you feel about like complex situation? The real world is not black and white. The real world is shades of gray, and the characters aren't all good or all evil. They're like people have layers, and kids understanding that and be able to process that stuff, it's growth. Lisa and I say a lot of times that it's both fortunate and unfortunate that kids in these situations need to grow up faster and they lose some of the innocence of their childhood before it's time,
They
but
do.
they get some life skills. And I saw that firsthand with Lisa's kids. They're a little bit older than mine, who at a very young age had emotional maturity that I never, I didn't have when she and I met. I mean, it's just really remarkable what the skills they can develop.
Yeah, yeah. And it's important that parents support them in those because again, if one person is decom decomposing the entire relationship and the other one is building them up and making them feel heard, making them feel seen and loving on them that they don't get over there. Maybe, yeah, you can drink Coke and eat pizza all night, but what really matters is showing up for your friends at school, doing your homework and teaching them the principles that regardless of them being undone tomorrow, to still hold in their heart. Because if no one's telling them to like, let's say, do your homework, they're going to go, I don't have to. And they're going to end up being a D student because they don't care, right? But if you impose and sit there and teach them and guide them and help them and walk them through the things they struggle with, they'll have a different perspective because they'll be able to think, oh, education's important and I want to learn more. And so just little things like that, undoing what the destructive parent is doing in educating them and making sure they're emotionally heard. And, I know this is a really hard thing for so many of my parents, and a dear friend of mine had 4 kids. She lost them all in the divorce. But I would say we were in the domestic violence world. I would say about 5 years ago, she got one of them back.
Mhm.
And I saw them a few weekends ago, and now she's got 2 back, and they're adults and they're married, and she's happy and she's got them. But the other 2 just hate her guts. Like it's not even reasonable to hate her this much because she's
Mhm.
never done anything that is worthy of this. It's the poisoning of their brain. Um, so Do you guys have success stories like that? People coming back? I mean, it's people need to hear that
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
give them
We
hope.
Yeah, we have so many that I can't even keep up because
We,
we have what, Chris?
well, I was going to say we have so many that we have a prop that we use when we get these on our calls. It looks like this. I don't know
That's
if you
our
have audio, but I've got like a balloon man.
It's
Oh,
a
the
little
balloon man
waving
coming
to,
up.
yes.
Yeah, balloon
Yes,
man.
that's our
Like you would
that's
see
our symbol
outside
of
a
victory.
like a
Yeah.
car, like a used car lot. They have. So I
Yeah.
don't know if you've got
Yeah.
podcasts.
So the balloon man comes out often. We have a weekly legal abuse support group and people share what's been happening and we often have these victories. One of our clients just yesterday was talking about, so he hadn't had his child stay overnight for 8 years, like severe case of alienation. He sent us a photograph of sneakers. It was a baby shoe and a large shoe. And he said, this is how much time has passed since he's been here. But
Wow.
he finally got him back and they had some overnights together and it's going well. I mean, the ex is freaking out and of course making things even more difficult. But that was amazing. And the fact that he lasted all this time fighting to get his kid back was incredible. Um, we have another client who's got 3 kids and the oldest was really alienated. The 2 younger ones, it's like this weird, back and forth. Like one kid won't go, but the others do. But then there's some issues with, and she was kind of giving up on the oldest one. It was like, all right, that's just a loss with this. But they've been seeing it's something like a parenting coordinator, like co-parenting counselor who's really involved like the whole family and stuff. And even though our client's been frustrated, her oldest has come back. And the facilitator really helped give some ideas of what might help, which is giving her child a lot of independence and the child has their own space, physical space. So it's almost like a little mini apartment. And so our client like stacks it with snacks and things and allows the child to decide if they want to come out with the family for things. And it's like, if you don't want to, that's totally fine, which almost like an animal, like the older child is now like, no, I want to go, but not being forced to do it. So that to me is like a huge victory because that completely has turned around. It's not perfect, but
Mhm.
it's so much progress. We have another person who's at the very beginning of the divorce and there was all kinds of stuff with infidelity and addiction. And so there's a lot of animosity between the parents, and the ex made our client feel that they were not entitled to be a parent because of what happened in the marriage, and basically said, I'm taking these 2 little kids away, moving across the country, and you're out, and you're not allowed to see them unless I say it's okay, and it's never going to be okay. And I'm going to get my family involved, and they're going to be more of a parent than you, and whatever. And so we met this client and across the country, and it was like, oh no, like I didn't think they would stay away for so long, and now what do I do? And we said, you got to follow up, like stay on it. So this person did court across the country, and the ex did not the ex did not present well to the judge, and the judge totally got it and was like, we are starting overnights immediately. And our client was so stunned that they almost weren't even ready for it and said, should we wait? Do the kids need time? And we're like, no, no, because when you've and the client had seen the kids like a couple of times in the past few months, but they're really little and they were fine with our client. And so the overnights have started. That's someone who really nipped it in the bud before it got worse. I mean, we have one of my close friends, very close friends, when her and we have interviews with the 2 daughters, by the way, on this. When the kids were 14 and 12, the older one got in a fight with my friend, a physical fight. The parents had already been divorced for years. The father was trying to pull the kids away, and my friend ended up getting arrested and going to jail, and a restraining order was put where she could not see her daughters for at least a year. And 8 years later, I mean, there's so much that happened in between, but my friend was basically heartbroken every day, but accepted it and also resented her daughters for lying to officials and telling them everything was okay and that she's abusive and stuff, whatever. But 8 years later, The younger one who was like in her maybe like 18 or 20, um, 12. Yeah, she was 20. She got a tattoo and suddenly was like, you know what? I wonder what mom would think. Calls her up. They start a relationship. The dad ends up in a place where the kids weren't dealing with him in this hostage situation, and they both are young adults, so they have now moved in with her, and this month it'll be 2 years, and it's just incredible to see the change that happened. And my friend also had been estranged from her own family who lives in another country because she's an immigrant. Her girls came back, her daughters came back, and she got her parents and her siblings back because she didn't realize her own father had basically alienated her from the family. So it was a big year. And then we spent a couple Christmases together, and the girls said I can interview them. So we have interviews with these two young adults. One's off camera, the other's trying to hide her face, about what the experience was like for them, because it's not what you expect. Like at one point, I asked the older daughter, or I said, my friend always felt like she must be a horrible mother to have daughters that don't talk to her, to have this happen. And she said, wow, horrible mother. She said, I felt like the worst daughter in the world because I was made to believe that my own mother didn't love me. So you have to keep that in mind, is the message that these kids are getting is that you don't want them. And so showing up and still staying consistent and making that effort, even though it feels like it's not making a difference, you have to keep doing it because they remember that. And studies show that kids are more likely to come back at some point, even though it feels like nothing's going to change. There's just so many stories. I'm not going to take up all the time talking about them, but there's a lot more from where that comes from. And
Uh,
Tracy, I don't know if you know this, just quickly, Chris. John, the male victims of female narcissists, who is our friend, and we have done an interview together a couple of years ago. His four kids were kept away from him for 4 years. Two of them just came back.
Yes.
And and in their 30s.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do an interview together because he's gonna talk about what happened because a huge part of his account base is like dealing with alienation. So
Yeah. Wow.
yeah,
it's hard
yeah,
to remember when your child is being a monster that they are the real victims.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hard to remember.
yeah,
But important to remember.
yeah.
Just as, say, the other parent was a victim of this person who's doing this, so does the child become, because now they're a weapon to destroy the parent. And so they are, tortured, and then they internalize it and they remember. I do believe that they remember. And when they come out of the cloud, I think I've seen a lot of those as well. And
And they have
yeah,
a lot of guilt for how they treated
yeah.
you.
Yeah, it makes sense. Well, guys, tell us where they can find your book.
Super easy. So here it is. It's on Amazon. Just Been There, Got Out. If you look up Been There, Got Out book, you'll see both because this is our first one from 2023. But just on Amazon, or you can go to our website, beentheregotout.com, and I'm sure there's something on there about the book and our feed on Instagram. We're on all social media, but Instagram's my home base. Plus, we have YouTube channel and a podcast, but the book is on Amazon.
And we are really easy to find. If you can
Yeah.
remember, been there, got out, just Google where
Oh, we'll put the
we're
link
easy.
down below so they can have that.
Yeah, and we're coming out with a course that aligns with the book. It's called the Alienation Masterclass: How to Protect Your Relationship with your children in and out of court.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. Great. Well, let me know when that comes out. And thank you guys for being here. It's great to see you again. And this was a great topic, and I'm excited to finish the book. I only started it, but I got to finish it this weekend.
When are you
Oh,
coming back east so we can have tacos again? I
We'll talk about that.
I really, really like tacos.
Well, you know what? We have that same taco store here in Boulder. Just saying.
yeah,
All
I got
right.
to get Chris out to Colorado. Yeah,
Exactly.
we'd love to see you again, Tracy.
Exactly. Well, guys, thank you so much.
Yeah, our
Our
pleasure.
pleasure.
I hope you guys enjoyed listening to them. they're pretty darn smart, and they have had their experiences with their exes and the heck and hell that they can cause to children, even if they are adults. So, if you want to find out their information, it's down below. If you are looking for help with this, you can find my website, narcissistabusesupport.com, down below. And I will look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you so much for joining me. And if you like this video, please leave a like and subscribe if you haven't.